Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the Jacqueline Middleton Coaching Channel. I'm Jacqueline Middleton. I'm a spiritual life coach and intuitive, and I'm so glad you're here with me today to join me for a 5D cup of tea. We're going to chat with this awesome woman on the screen here, and um, just want to tell you what drew me to Christina. Christina is an amazing evolutionary astrologer. And I've watched a lot of astrologers out there, and I gotta say, Christina is one of a kind. She has not only an amazing grasp and wisdom about evolutionary astrology, she also is an old soul who has the most incredible spiritual wisdom that she weaves into all of her videos on her YouTube channel and all of her personal readings she does. And on top of that, she's got the most lighthearted, joyful, great sense of humor. And I find when I'm watching her videos on YouTube, I end up laughing along with her. It's a real delight for me to introduce you to Christina, and I'm going to ask her in just a minute to just tell us a little bit about what drew her into astrology, and then we're just going to have a nice down to earth authentic chat about astrology and about whatever else comes up. We're not scripted, either one of us. This is authentic and real. You're watching two spiritual warriors slash light workers, whatever kind of terms you are drawn to. We're just going to have a nice chat and see what comes up. So, without further ado, I want to introduce you to Christina of Zenith Glow Astrology. How you doing, Christina?
I'm doing great, Jacqueline. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. And thank you for that beautiful introduction. I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely, it's
uh,
all true.
oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And likewise, you are also a beautiful light worker and doing incredible work in our community. And I just value your energy and your insight and wisdom and everything that you've been sharing through your channel. So, yeah, two
Thank
fans
you.
of each other
You got
together.
it. Right
Yeah.
on. So,
Yeah.
so tell us, how did you get into astrology? You've told me a little bit of the story, and it's pretty cool. It's not your average astrologer's background, I don't think.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows what the average what the
Yeah,
average is. But
sure.
my personal story, so I actually I am a third generation astrologer. So my great grandma was an astrologer, and then my grandma was an astrologer. Now, I didn't know my great grandma. She passed away before I was born. I did grow up with my grandma hearing all about astrology. So it was very common in my family to be like, "Where's the moon today? What's going on with the moon?" Oh, typical figures. Yeah. Like no wonder I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. Or like, well, Mercury's retrograde. We always had conversations like that in my family. My grandma, of course, ran charts for me and all of my siblings, and would talk to my mom about various things to expect from me as I got older, and all kinds of stuff. But I didn't actually learn astrology from her. I didn't get, let's see. So I've always been around astrology. I've always been, very casually interested in it throughout my life. And again, picked up little things here and there just from being around it. It wasn't until 2019-ish that I started to look into it a little more seriously. Um, that was kind of a year of initiation for me. Um, and then when 2020 hit, I was working in the 3D world, working at a university, doing the most boring job I've ever done, to be honest. And I had a lot of free time on my hands, so I was constantly researching astrology at work. Uh, and anyway, when the pandemic hit, I was let go from my job, and I got all this free time all of a sudden. And I was able to just totally throw myself into it. I started researching astrology and came across the work of Jeff Green, who is like the person for evolutionary astrology. I mean, evolutionary astrology is kind of a broad term, and there are lots of different astrologers who consider themselves evolutionary astrologists, but Jeff Green is really like the one who um, spearheaded the work. And he actually wrote some amazing books centered around Pluto and the influence of Pluto in evolutionary astrology and how that, pertains to the soul and the soul's progression. Everything that I saw of Jeff Green and read from him, it just resonated with me on a super deep level. And at that time, I think like a lot of people, I was doing some soul searching and wanting to understand myself better and my path better. So I kind of just dove headfirst into it. Like, I need to understand everything about this that I possibly can, because that's the way that I function. I want to research things in depth, in great detail. And there was something about it that just kind of stuck with me. There's something about astrology. People ask me, like, how do you know all this stuff? How do you remember all this stuff? It just clicks with me for some reason. And I can honestly say that's not true of a lot of things. But astrology is just one of those things. It resonates with me so deeply.
Yeah,
And so from there, I'm self-taught and just
beautiful.
read every single book I could get my hands on and watched a lot of videos, and then eventually started practicing. And here I am today doing what I'm doing.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Oh, I love it.
green at the
I love it. Thanks for sharing a little bit of your background. I think it's fair to say that astrology is literally in your blood, from your great grandma to your grandma to you. So
Yeah, yeah,
amazing. Yeah. Yeah. And
yeah,
it's always an ongoing journey. We keep learning the whole time, right? That's the goal anyways.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's one of the
Yeah.
things that I love about astrology is it is truly an infinite subject, and it
Yeah.
continues to evolve as humanity evolves. So you really don't ever reach a limit on what you can learn.
Yeah.
And it's all about finding what you resonate with. And so it's like the one thing that I have found in my life that I can literally keep evolving with, keep learning and growing from. So yeah, I'm always going to be a student when it comes to astrology. And I think
Yeah.
that that's true of
That's
everyone.
beautiful. And that's that. Well, first of all, I got to say, for everybody watching, like if you haven't watched one of Christina's YouTube videos yet on Zenith Glow Astrology, go and watch it, because her love and her joy, her natural joy for astrology, it just so comes out. I guarantee you'll be smiling and probably giggling along with her. It's awesome, along with all this incredible astrology wisdom and spiritual wisdom that she ties in. And like I say, that's a lot of what drew you to me. That I think we both take somewhat similar approach as far as science and spirituality being two sides of the same coin, that kind of approach, and tying in spiritual wisdom to whatever it is kind of that is our passions, um, for me, on the coaching side of things, and for you with astrology. So I think it's a nice balance to have. And I have to say, the other thing that I really see in you, Christina, is, and it's something that I've spoken about a little bit on a couple of videos I've done on my channel, is emotional intelligence. And
Mm.
I think that is such a big part of the ascension process that we're all moving through. I think there's a little bit more emphasis, I think, is going to be coming into the energies of emphasis on emotional intelligence. Not to put aside intellectual intelligence, it's wonderful, but just the fact that
Mhm.
I think the importance and the strength of emotional intelligence is going to keep increasing, I think, especially, you know with what the world's moving through, this ascension process. There's a lot of challenging truths that are coming up into the light. And
Mhm.
in order to handle those kind of things as we see them come up in the world, the more we can be grounded in some good healthy emotional intelligence, the more it's going to help all of us. And I think, what you talk about in your astrology readings too is it really shows that the process that we're all going through in this ascension process of doing the shadow work, going within, because that's always where the healing is. We're not going to find it out there. We, as you well know, because you speak about this in your videos, we have to go within and do the healing, and the inner world is reflected in the outer world. And the more that all of us can do that shadow work, and although it's not easy at times, it leads to the biggest rewards. I can't remember whose quote it is. I wish I could, but I've always loved the saying, the unexamined life isn't worth living. It's all the gifts, all of the wisdom, it's always within us. And even if we when we get the wisdom that can come from outside sources, and really good outside sources, like a great astrologer like yourself, it's just kind of shining a light and guiding us to all that wisdom that's within us. And you're so good at and explaining that. And I have to say, I was lucky enough to have a reading done by Christina, and it's just so eye-opening, especially for what we're moving through right now in the world, through this awakening process, this ascension process. So I highly recommend you check out Christina. I'm going to put her deets under the video here so that you can find her and look her up. But you and I have been chatting a fair bit lately, Christina, about going into the year of the fire horse, which starts, the lunar new year starts on February 17th. And that's some powerful, quick moving energies. And also this is a numerological 1 year. And you've done some wonderful videos on some of those aspects about all of us having the opportunity to step into leadership roles, mainly, the individuation process, that really, like we were just talking about, going within, that's a big part of this numerological year, I think, isn't it? Let me know
Yes,
what you think
yes,
about. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, it is a
You
one
take
year.
it
So
wherever you want. Sorry, you take it wherever you want. Let's
there were
let's just
so many little like sparks that
yeah.
I got just from what you were talking about. I'm like, okay, say that, talk about that, don't forget about that. Um, so yeah, it's a 1 year. So we're talking about pioneering, initiating, stepping into individual path, like your purpose and your mission, and stepping into leadership. And that, leadership doesn't necessarily mean that you are leading other people. It means that you become the leader of your own life, that you're not following other people, you're following your inner guidance, your intuition, your own discernment, and where your heart, where your soul is calling you to go. And having the courage and the tenacity to follow through with that, because it is not for the faint of heart. I've said in other videos, like, spirit will call you outside your comfort zone. It is the hero's journey, right? It's the call to adventure. It's going to beckon you into places that you don't want to go. But it's like you were saying, it's also that inner work, right? And we've done a lot of inner work through the wood snake year. And now we're starting to see the fruits of our labor manifested outside of us through physical action and through changes in our environment. But we are always called inward, right? We are always still called inward. And I love, there's that quote by Joseph Campbell, Hero's Journey, right? The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. So it's like we are going to be called into these places that make us feel uncomfortable and maybe we are afraid of. This is also the energy of Neptune and Saturn moving into Aries this year. So Neptune moved into Aries yesterday at the time that we are recording this. Saturn will be moving there on February 14th. So Neptune will be there until 2039, I think. And then Saturn will be there until 2028. So this is a fresh energy. Aries is a cardinal sign. It represents a whole new cycle opening. So part of the wood snake energy was closing the old cycle, and then the fire horse / one universal year is bringing us into a brand new cycle. So this energy of Aries, the archetype of Aries, Aries is the warrior, Aries is the pioneer, it is the trailblazer. And we feel through this archetype that call to adventure, that special destiny that we have to follow. And on the journey, we're going to encounter obstacles and challenges, and we are going to have to fight to keep going and to keep following where we are called. And of course, this is metaphorical and it shows up for each of us in different ways, but especially having Saturn transiting through Aries, because Saturn will present us with tests and limits and challenges and boundaries and pressure and restriction. Saturn is like our, really strict teacher, who does offer us incredible wisdom, but it's, I always
Yeah.
say Saturn is a ball buster.
Yeah.
So, we're going to go through, a lot of challenges, and that's part of it, right? It's part of the initiation. And that's something that I talked about as well. Lunar New Year corresponds with an annular solar eclipse in Aquarius. So this is our first eclipse along the axis of Aquarius and Leo. So that is fresh energy coming through. And then an annular eclipse is a ring of fire eclipse,
Yeah.
which symbolizes spiritual initiation. And that
Yeah.
is the energy that imprints our entire year, because this is what we are beginning with. So we are
Wow.
literally undergoing spiritual initiation, being called to follow our own adventure. And then along the path, we are going to encounter challenges and opposition in various forms that it's all unique to each of us individually. And
Yeah.
part of the test is, can you stay the path? Can you stay true to yourself? And then within that energy, you've also got Neptune. And Neptune, this is very challenging energy because Neptune and Saturn are opposite of each other, in the sense that Saturn wants to create structures, boundaries, crystallizations, definitions, and Neptune wants to dissolve boundaries and definitions. So you have the principle of building and structuring versus the principle of dissolving. And now Neptune is the outer planet. So it ultimately will have the final say in what gets
Wow.
created. So even Saturn has to bow to Neptune.
Yeah.
But
That's so interesting. Sorry, I just gotta like because what you're describing between Neptune and Saturn there, it's so exactly what we're going to see in the outer world. I think more and more
yes.
this year, the next couple years, we're going to
Mhm.
see aspects of society in the political field, in well, every area of
Yeah.
society, education, everything. We're going to see a
Yes.
dissolving because as we know, it's got to dissolve before it can be rebuilt on a
Yes.
foundation of truth and light and authenticity. So we got to watch those shadows come up and get dissolved, eh? That's what it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's exactly, and being in the sign of Aries, which is associated with our ego and with our
Yeah.
identity, we're going to be confronted with the old paradigms for what that means for us. Who am I? Who have I known myself to be? What did I think my path was? What did I want to see manifest in my life? And then Neptune is this higher spiritual octave coming in and saying, no, spirit has a different path for you. So again, you're going to be called outside your comfort zone. We're going to resist the call to adventure, go through the whole classic hero's
Yeah.
journey trope. And then eventually, hopefully, we learn to marry the two energies, because you can marry those two energies of Saturn and Neptune. They can learn to be, worked together. But
Exactly. And
it's
sorry, I didn't mean to cut
no,
you
no,
off. Go
no.
ahead.
Oh
Oh,
no,
I
it's
just
just a matter of learning to, allow your ego to be guided by divine will. That's all I was going to say.
Oh, I love it. I love it. That's so beautiful. And I'm gonna apologize. I don't mean to cut off Christina. There's sometimes a little bit of a delay on Zoom, so I'm trying not to be an idiot and cut her off. It's just every once in a while it may come out that way. So please forgive me, Christina. And
Yeah,
And as Christina and I said just before we started recording, the highest vibration these days, I always thought it was love, and definitely love's right up there. That's the second most, I think. But authenticity is the highest vibe there is. So, we're going with this. It doesn't matter if there's a few glitches here and there. We want it to be real, and we want it to be relatable. So now I just got myself totally off track. But oh yeah, I loved what you said there about spirit coming in and kind of guiding the ego, because it's interesting. Like in my background, when I worked as a counselor, we always talked about we talked about many aspects of the ego, but it was always important. It's important to realize, because there was a time in counseling years ago, way back in the 80s, where the focus was on get rid of your ego, get rid of your ego.
Mm.
Well, we can't get rid of our ego. Our ego is needed. It's what drives our personality. And to be here in the 3D world, we need to have our ego. But like you said so beautifully about spirit coming in and kind of balancing ego, that's our goal. Of one of the big goals in the ascension process is to I kind of like the metaphor of, if you're in a car, you don't want your ego driving the car. You want to get the ego in the back seat and get your spirit, your soul in the front seat driving. And that's what leads us to going from being ego driven, totally ego driven, to being soul infused, a soul
Yeah,
infused personality that's led by their soul, led by spirit. So I love the way you said that. And it's so interesting. I can't believe the big energies, like you say, an annular eclipse on the same day as the Lunar New Year. And every time, it's so interesting when you describe it, I literally picture a fire horse, a horse with beautiful flames around it, like jumping through a ring of fire, that annular ring of fire. So I kind of have a feeling that we're in for some really big transformative energies. But that's what we're all here for. We wouldn't be here if we weren't all spiritual warriors. And everybody that's watching this, I guarantee you are a spiritual warrior. So
yeah,
yeah, so interesting, the energies that we're moving through. Definitely. And you
absolutely.
said Saturn is the real taskmaster, right? So like, because as you can tell, folks, I am not an astrologer. I have very little wisdom on it, but that's what I love too about Christina, is she brings it into, when she brings in the spiritual wisdom, it makes it understandable. And like you were talking about the hero's journey, um, yeah, the challenges that come in before we get to, the sort of typical metaphor. The spiritual warrior goes into the cave and fights the dragon and gains the treasure, and then comes out of that process, and the treasures are those amazing insights and gifts that we realize from facing our shadow, which is what the dragon represents. The only thing I'd like to change in that metaphor is I wouldn't slay the dragon, because I like dragons. So I'll come up with a
Yeah,
better
yeah, me
metaphor.
too. Too. Yeah, no, it's so
Yeah.
true.
And are we coming up to what astrologically? So we've got a full moon in 2 days, is it? I can't remember,
A
because I'm
little
feeling
more
some
than
big
2 days.
energies today.
Yeah,
Sorry, that's
yeah.
what you and I were talking before we got on camera. Huge energies. It was involving Pluto. Remind me what it was.
Yeah, so yesterday Neptune moved into Aries. Today we have a Pluto Mars conjunction in Aquarius, in the mid section of 3 degrees of Aquarius. And this is a significant aspect because Pluto and Mars have been doing this kind of special dance ever since late 2024, actually. And this is part of, I said in my recent video, I had like a Sherlock Holmes moment because I was looking at the past alignments from 2025 and then what's coming up in 2026, and I realized that they're all interconnected. So yeah, but specifically with Pluto and Mars in evolutionary astrology, Pluto represents the soul's desire, for evolution and what is needed to keep the soul evolving. But those things exist within us on an unconscious level, which is kind of like that source level consciousness. And again, it's sort of something that feels like it exists outside of the ego self or the conscious identity. Mars, as the ruler of Aries, is our conscious identity, and it represents our willpower and our desire and the way that we take action. And so, as both of these planets are connected to Scorpio and Aries, so they're sort of like dual rulers of the signs. Mars was the traditional ruler of Scorpio before we discovered Pluto. And you could say that the functions of Pluto are needed to bring Aries into a higher octave as well. So they kind of like are reciprocal energies. Basically, Pluto will call on Mars to facilitate action on behalf of the soul. And sometimes Mars will resist that action because it is our ego, right? And there is like that individual will versus divine will. But of course, I always say Pluto gets what Pluto wants. So at the end of the day, we will attract, Pluto is attractive. We will attract to us circumstances, people, events, whatever, to facilitate the lessons of the soul. So, all that being said, that's just like kind of laying the tracks for what I'm about to say, which is that when you have Mars and Pluto in conjunction, it is a new cycle starting, a new cycle of energy that is starting, or a new phase of that energy. And Pluto is actively transforming the expression of Mars to shift it into a higher octave. And that is through Aquarius. And so that energy is truth, and that is freedom, and that is authenticity, and that is working for the greater good rather than just the individual ego.
Wow.
So we are starting a new, yeah, and this is all right before we enter the fire horse year, right?
Yeah, yeah. It just amazes me how the astrological energies line up so exactly. I mean, it's not a coincidence. That's the driving force and the energies in the stars that but it just lines up so much with what we see happening already in the world, and
Mhm.
what's going to happen so much more this year, especially, and I think into 2027 as well. But that the fact that the truth is going to be coming up more and more about so many different aspects that have been hidden in society and in our world for so long, and they're going to be they are some tough truths, as people just awaken to them, and a lot of people are still just starting to awaken to these truths. But it's all part of the process, isn't it? It's all part of our evolution. And you were talking as well, a lot about the energies that are coming up of, um, the marriage of divine feminine and divine masculine, within us, because that's always, it happens within us first and then is reflected in the outer world. And I think that's so much a part of the ascension process, is coming to balance within ourselves so that we can reflect that in the outer world,
Yeah.
and balancing divine feminine and sacred masculine. And yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about that, the Hieros Gamos, as it's called, that sacred marriage of the balance within us? I've
Yeah.
forgotten. You've told me what the astrology is that's leading us into that balance work, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, on one level, it all is, right? Because it's all interconnected. And I will say that all of the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, they're all making harmonious aspects to each other as they each are ingressed or moved into their sign. So, sorry, this is just kind of as an aside. So Neptune and Aries, that's moved in now. Uranus is still retrograde in Taurus, but it's going to move back into Gemini, I think, at the end of April, and it will stay there for the next 6 years. And then we already have Pluto in the early degrees of Aquarius. So all the outer planets are forming harmonious aspects to each other, which means that they're vibing with each other, they're speaking the same language, and they are impacting us collectively through that language. And all of them speak to this theme of what you were saying, truth. And it's all coming through on the collective. But again, this is a one universal year. Our focus is on the self and the inner world and the individuality, and the authentic journey that you are being called toward. in your own unique way. So I want to say this because I think it's important to recognize we're going to see a lot going on in the world, on the world stage, right? But I think it's important to remember that what you are seeing out there is just a reflection of what's going on within you.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this morning, and I was thinking about Uranus and Gemini in particular, again, about truth. What is truth, and how do we speak truth? And what have we been taught is true? We're going to be going back to basics with that Uranus and Gemini energy and kind of learning, yeah, what is true reality? And I was
Yeah.
thinking about vision and our eyes and how our eyes are like projectors. We take
Mm.
in information with our eyes, but the lens is also like a projector. And so what you are seeing out in the world, or what you are placing your focus on, is what you are also creating in your individual reality. And that is where the personal leadership comes in, because yeah, you're going to be watching things, but when you get emotionally invested in those things, you become uh, connected to them. You start to draw that into your personal reality.
Exactly.
So this does
Yeah.
tie into the Hieros Gamos, though, as well, because we each have to individuate, like you were saying. And we have to come into union, inner union within the self first. And then, of course, it will become
Yeah.
reflected in outer union uh, for a lot of us through romantic partnerships, through divine feminine, divine masculine coming together.
Yeah.
So part of this dynamic is Pluto and Mars, like I was just saying. And this is the initiation. This is actually like phase two of a bigger cycle that's been going on since the end of 2024, but we're shifting it into a different gear this year. So Pluto is the transformer, right? It wants to rebirth, and it will cause us to transform ourselves, to transcend the old ways, often through pain, because we have to die to the old self to be reborn.
Yeah.
Mars is our masculine principle, it is our masculine energy. And so the work that Pluto is doing with Mars from now and then again later this year, October 3rd, these two planets will then be in opposition to each other at the same degree that they were in opposition to each other last April. And that degree, and I don't have to get into like all the nitty gritty of it, but that degree, when you look at the Sabian symbols for those degrees they're in, it has to do, it's the same theme. It's like spiritualizing the ego. It's like taking the individual self and marrying it with the spiritual self, with spiritual guidance and divine will. And for Mars in particular, as the warrior, as the masculine archetype, it is divine masculine's mission and duty to be the protector for the divine
Mm.
feminine. And and again, this is happening on an interior level first. We each have divine feminine and masculine within us. And for so many of us, for so long, we have sort of neglected divine feminine, or sort of thrown her to the wolves. We have not been stepping into divine masculine energy as the source of protection for divine feminine. And thus we have created this deep imbalance within ourselves.
Yeah.
But this is also reflected outside of us, right? And so we see that through relationship dynamics, and we also see that in like gender roles and the way that this has been played out for centuries now, actually. And I don't want this to
Exactly.
turn into like a feminist conversation, because I also think that feminism as a, as an ideology has been corrupted as well, and it has been like a kind of hijack in and of itself.
You're
But
just,
there also is
yeah,
there's also
sorry. I
truth
just,
to it, though, right?
yeah, yeah. No, you're
Yeah,
exactly bang on. It was just going through my head as you were describing that so well that I was thinking the same thing. And years ago, I started to get pulled into that, a little bit of the feminism thing. And I know now it was truly an agenda. It was literally a
yeah,
three letter alphabet agenda to
right.
break up the family unit, to get women
Yes,
to be outside of the home and not raising kids, and let the state raise the kids instead, all part of what I can now look back and see. And it's such a shame because it's done so much harm to the family unit, but it is like you're just describing, the astrological energies are here to support the balance coming back now. And as you say,
Yeah.
first within us, and then outside of us. Yeah, what's I gonna say there? Train went off the tracks again. um yeah, oh, I know. Just the I see so much of this happening in the ascension process within the world, is that it's all a pendulum, right? We've had the pendulum
Right.
swing to the extremes of polarizing our genders and causing division between the
Mm.
genders, and going so far one way. And slowly that pendulum is, I really see it's starting to come back. It's going to come back to balance. And I
Right.
love that you're describing that. Of course it has to happen within us first. And I loved
Yeah.
what you said earlier too about the lens of the eyes and what we focus on. And I've always loved that saying, where attention goes, energy flows. And it's so true.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
as we do this inner shadow work and we go through this ascension process, it's so important to have some grounding techniques and centering techniques to bring us back. Because as you say, as we focus, it's going to be impossible to ignore the huge changes that are going to happen in society in this next year, especially. So many areas of society that are going to crumble in order to be rebuilt. It's the only
Yeah.
way it can happen. But as we go through that, and as we go through the same journey within ourselves, um, like you were saying, we have to, the challenge is to have some of those centering and balancing tools to bring us back to the calm and the balance. Because you know the truth is, and like the gurus and masters would say, there can be a storm, there can be a tornado swirling around us. But boy, if we can master the technique of going within, because there's always that stillness and that calm within us. And
Right.
once we can do that, then boy, that makes going through this process a lot easier for sure. Yeah. But
Absolutely. And that's part of the lesson of having Saturn in Pisces these last 3 years. Saturn has been teaching us that we have to cultivate spiritual discipline. We have to learn these tools, these techniques, and to rely on ourselves and use our own spiritual discernment to navigate the path rather than, outsourcing our wisdom to others, to gurus. I've been saying the last 3 years, there's no more gurus the way that there
yeah,
used to be. And
yeah,
so, and now Saturn is in the final degrees of Pisces. And again, it will change signs on February 14th. So, just as a heads up to everyone, those tests and those challenges get kicked up a notch when it's in those final degrees. So, you might be facing some pretty strong tests that will challenge your spiritual discernment at this time, where you might feel like you want to go back to old ways. And what is so and so saying about this? Because I feel totally lost and I need guidance. And really, we are being called inward to trust that we already know, we already have the answers. And it's like you were saying, you can be calm within the storm if you get grounded and centered within yourself. um yeah, so many things, again, so many thoughts just triggered when you were talking about all of that.
yeah,
But yeah, the going back to the feminine stuff, absolutely, like the whole feminist movement was really there to kind of distort the divine feminine, right? And again, divide and conquer. That's why there's always this division going on between masculine and feminine, because as long as you are not united within yourself, you can be controlled.
yeah,
Ultimately, that's what it comes down to.
yeah,
So the more that you are in sovereignty, the more that you are unified and in, you have that inner marriage within, you stand in your power and in your sovereignty. That's why there's all these distractions calling you outside of yourself, because your power is within yourself.
yeah,
And again, Uranus and Gemini, it's going to really be deconditioning the way that we look at media, information, news, sharing with each other, communication, what we know, our intelligence, and all kinds of things. And it's really helping us to see the way that things have been manipulated for so long, the control of information and how that impacts people. And it's the stories that we're telling. And keep in mind, Gemini is ruled by Mercury, right? Mercury is it's the magician in the tarot. It is our ability to manifest. It's how we take what is in the mind, Gemini, and bring it down into physical reality, which is the Virgo that Mercury also rules. So the connection between the mental realm and the tangible realm. And with Uranus transiting through that sign, it's helping us to see. It's going to highlight for us because we already know this on like a theoretical level, or we've learned this through our spiritual study. Where your attention goes is where energy flows. What you perceive is what you draw into reality. What the thoughts that you're thinking is what you're reinforcing through your manifestations. All these things we know on like that abstract level, but how many of us witness it firsthand, or how many of us are embodying that
Yeah.
wisdom or actually putting it into practice? Because I see so many people. It's like, we know this, we know the law of attraction, we know how this stuff works. But I see so many people, uh, you know, here's a news story, whether it comes through the truther community or through mainstream media or whatever. And then, okay, I'm going to share this, and then I'm going to share it, and then I'm going to share it, and then I'm going to share it. And it's like, okay, well, that story just spread like wildfire. Is it actually true? Who's telling the
Exactly.
story? Because
Exactly.
every story has a narrator, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes there are unreliable narrators. And it's like,
Yeah.
what kind of stories are we trying to perpetuate? And again, yeah, the projector, what you're putting your focus
Yeah.
on is what you're
Yeah.
creating. Is that really where you want to invest your energy? Um,
Exactly. And what you just said, discernment. Oh my gosh. Like if the world was a Sesame Street show right now, the show would be brought to you by the words discernment and sovereignty. It's just like, holy
right?
smokes, our discernment is getting such a workout. And that's, again, I think that's tied into the kind of the shift into emotional intelligence. The more we've worked through a lot of our emotional stuff, the more in touch we are with our gut and with our intuition, and
Yeah,
therefore with our discernment. And the
yeah,
more truthful we are with ourselves, the more, I believe, the more we're able to discern and see truth in the outer world. Because it all, just like you're saying, it all starts within. Everything
yes,
starts within. The more we heal
right,
within, the more we are truthful and honest with ourselves, and love all those shadow aspects of ourselves, and like you say, get to that point of embodiment. There's such a difference in the emotional healing journey from moving from the head to the heart. And like I've said in the past, the biggest journey that any human can take is from the head to the heart, from the mind to the heart, and embodying this wisdom and these lessons. And you said
yeah,
that beautifully. Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. Well, and it's like coming into coherence with yourself. The more that you are in coherence with yourself, the more you are able to detect things that are not in coherence. You pick it up right away, you sense it right away. So, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Again, it's always about going inward, it's always about the inner journey first, and then things become manifest outside. Um, it's interesting you're talking about emotional intelligence because, this year, all of Mercury's retrograde cycles are going to be happening in water signs. So we have our, again, mental faculties, our perception, our communication, and the information that we receive. Whenever Mercury is retrograde, that's a time where we go back over things and we integrate them so that they can be, synthesized in our conscious awareness. And then we can carry that forward in a way that's elevated and, healthy.
Yeah.
So going through all the water signs, that's like our psychic information and our emotional intelligence and cellular memory and the true like roots of who we are at the deepest levels. So absolutely we're going to be called inward this year at a whole
Yeah.
new depth. Um, but as well, I talked about this in my fire horse video a little bit,
Yeah.
and I was looking at it again this morning. when I was thinking about the year of the fire horse, one of the first things that popped into my head, which I think was spirit being like, hey, remember this, was
Mhm.
the author D.H. Lawrence. So D.H. Lawrence was an English author, and he was popular around the time, like post-industrial revolution. And he used horses a lot in his literature, and horses were always metaphors for different things, but they often were metaphors for emotional intelligence and physical embodiment and sacred sexuality, power dynamics, power struggles. And in particular, he wrote a lot about, because he was sort of like anti-industrial, like, imagine being alive at the time, at the height of the Industrial Revolution, which, by the way, Uranus was discovered around the time of the Industrial Revolution. And Uranus is the planet associated with technology and innovation and future vision, right? It helps us to like make leaps and bounds in our evolution. Uh, so it's interesting because we had this huge evolution of industrialization and technology at that time. Well, guess where we are right now? And we have Pluto in Aquarius, which is the sign that Uranus rules. So we have this transformation going on through technology, science, innovation, the medical industry, yeah, the oh my gosh, the pharmaceutical industrial
Mm.
complex, and all of that stuff is going to be coming out again, stuff that's going to be revealed, truth, transformation. I mean, in its shadow aspect, Aquarius is associated with the mad scientist. So we're probably going to see some really gnarly things over the next 20 years. But all of that aside, we have this, media and internet, social media, really fast paced evolution of technology. And it really does kind of echo from that period when Uranus was first discovered and we entered the Industrial Revolution. And I just think about D.H. Lawrence again and his work, and it's so interesting that he felt called to use horses as symbols for a lot of these things. And now we are entering the year of the fire horse. But a lot of his work was really calling into or calling out the way that we overvalue the mind in society. And he thought that, true power came from emotion and from that like raw physical vitality. And to him, horses represented that. Horses are emotionally intelligent creatures and they tend to mirror human emotion. And they hold like this deep kind of emotional wisdom that we can find when we connect with them. And so as well, they hold this like raw sexual energy, which he wrote about as well. And not just sexual though, it's physical embodiment energy, the energy of physical intelligence, like body intelligence as
Yeah.
well. And I think all of these themes are going to come through the year of the fire horse because, especially for those of us that are like on this spiritual journey, and we've been doing this work for, some people have been doing it for years and years. Some people have only been awake for a few years, but however long you've been doing it, kind of diving into like the 5D of it all, right? I think that there's a lot of bypassing that goes on. And I think there's a lot of desire for transcendence, like wanting to totally transcend the physical realm and all the stuff that's going on down here, so to speak. Because there is a lot going on, right? There is a lot of chaos. There's a lot of harsh energy. There's a lot of rude awakenings at times. The shadow is rising into the light, right? This is like the time of tribulation. So it's natural to want to escape those things. But, through the wisdom of horses, and again, I keep thinking about D.H. Lawrence, it's like, it's actually opposite of what you think. Like the way to move through this energy, you can't bypass it. You have to go through it, right? You have to go into the cave, right? You have to go into the
Yeah.
cave.
Yeah.
And it's actually counterintuitive. It's like you have to go into your body. Your body is what holds the wisdom. Your body is what remembers. And I think a lot of people struggle with this because we are trying to access information through the mind and
Mhm.
trying to understand it from the level of mind. And it's like, well, how does my body, like, what's my body going to tell me? because you're thinking
Yeah.
of it in the way that your mind would conceive of it, but your body speaks in a totally different way.
Yeah.
And Carl Jung also taught in a lot of his work that this stuff is sort of like non-linear. Like you don't, and I tell people this too, like you don't, people tell you to meditate, right? Like, oh, you'll find the answers if you meditate. So many people sit down and they meditate, and maybe they meditate for 30 minutes, maybe an hour. And then they stand back up and they're like, well, I didn't get anything from that. The answer didn't come to me. That didn't work, and they kind of write it off. And it's like, yeah, but this is a non-linear process. Like you're not just going to like sit down and there's A and then B is going to happen 30 minutes later. It's like, no, it's going to, completely work in a way that doesn't make sense to your logical brain, which works in a linear fashion, right? Again, it bypasses the mind. You might find the answer 3 days later and realize that the answer was something that happened a week ago that you didn't realize was the answer, but suddenly it's
Yeah.
coming into coalescence in your mind now. It's
Yeah.
actually like the mind is the slowest faculty in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
Even though our minds race, it's like the mind is actually the slowest faculty. Your heart knows things right away, your body knows things right away. The principle of Uranus, which is the higher octave of Mercury, it is the God mind, the higher mind. Uranus is lightning fast and it is non-linear, and it takes time to downstep that
Yeah.
energy in a
Yeah.
way that can be synthesized with the faculty of Mercury, which is your conscious mind. So
Yeah.
again, emotional intelligence, Mercury going back over things through water signs this year. It's like, I think we've been, in some ways, collecting data on an emotional level. And some of that is like way, way old. Like it comes from ancestry. It's stuff that's in our cellular DNA,
Mhm.
right? And I think that Mercury this year is really going to be synthesizing that information in a way that makes sense to our brain. That's
Yeah.
really what it is going through all the water signs. So,
Yeah. That's so
sorry.
beautiful the way you explain it. And again, it ties in with, yeah, with the such a big part of the ascension process is us needing to be here in the 3D. Like you say, there's always there's such a desire, I think, once we start the spiritual and emotional healing journey, to transcend out of it. And then we can get pulled into spiritual bypassing, where we're like, oh, everything's good, I've done my work, I'm all good. Meanwhile, there's a lot swirling inside. And I like the idea too that um bringing heaven to earth, which is, one way I think to describe the end result of the ascension process, whenever we get to that, is really about being ourselves and embodying ourselves here and now in the 3D. That's how we bring heaven to earth. It's going through this ascension process. And yeah, you just described that really beautifully, because yeah, we have to ground this energy, and especially with how big the energies are right now, we're taking in so much. A part of the ascension process is taking in these light codes that we're being bombarded with, even though we may
Yeah.
not see them. But we're taking in so much light, and we need to be able to ground that light down into the earth. That's a big part of bringing heaven to earth. And I just love the way you talk about embodiment. That's probably the biggest part too of the healing journey. Like we were saying, it's one thing to know something in your head, but to take knowledge in the head and turn it into wisdom means to embody it, for sure. And
Yeah.
you've just talked about that so beautifully. Yeah, yeah.
And
I
that's
have a
like an
feeling
alchemical
this fire.
process.
Sorry.
Oh, and that's like an alchemical process that you undergo.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Oh, I'm so glad you said that. The alchemy is that would be another word if this was a Sesame Street show. Today's show is brought to you by the word alchemy. I'm going to say alchemy, sovereignty, truth, embodiment. There you go. There's our four words for today's show. And brought to you by the number one, because we're in a numerological one
Brought to
year.
you
So
by the
there.
number one.
Sesame Street needs to get us on the show.
Maybe we could start our own Sesame Street.
There you go. Exactly. I think 5DT is something that we can do more and cover a lot of good wisdom. And I know
Yeah.
that's the whole goal for both you and I, is just being able to share some little nuggets of wisdom here and there that will help make the healing journey and the ascension journey maybe just a little bit easier for everybody, all the beautiful souls out there that are watching. Yeah. And
And to
sorry, go
that,
ahead.
oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, it's good.
To
Go ahead.
that end, I think that's why, and we've already talked about this a little bit, but maybe for viewers, um, that's why what we're doing right now is so important. And I think not just for us, but for other people. It's, and again, there's a difference, right? There's a difference between watching a video, watching a teaching by somebody, and you are looking to them as a leader to guide you through your choices versus that inner spiritual discernment and self leadership. But what we are doing that is so important is we are acting as a mirror for other people. We are acting as a trigger for other people. And I say this because this is something that I've gotten watching other people have conversations. It's not that, other people are watching this and going to say, well, Jacqueline said this, so that means I'm going to do this. It's more like we are just reflections of you in your reality from your perception of reality. We are not even us. We are just reflections of you, teaching you what you already know and reminding you of what already exists within you. If you're watching us talk right now, you are in resonance with us and you were drawn to us magnetically through that soul signature because there's something that needs to come through to you through whatever we're saying. And that could be anything, really, whether it's literally what we're talking about or whether it resonates as something deeper within. But anyway, I think that, and again, Uranus and Gemini, I think, again, like communication and sharing information. And then the Aquarius of it all, collaborating with other people, the more that we come together and the more that we share ideas, it really does spark revolution and it sparks this evolution in humanity's progress. That's part of the higher octave of Aquarius, is this collaborative energy and what we can create, because what you can create together is so much more than what you can create on your own.
Absolutely. Oh, so beautifully said. I love it. And I always have this picture in my head when talking about this energy and the spark that goes out and connects us all. And again, whether, not that we need labels or terms, but whether you know feel like you're a light worker, star seed, a spiritual warrior, just an awakened person on the ascension journey. I always picture the same way that tree roots all connect to each other, and the mushroom biome that all connects together and connects the whole forest. I literally
Yeah.
picture that when you gave that beautiful description. It's like, here goes our light and what we're talking about. It's like boom, 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 boom. And I see
Yeah.
all these lights lighting up and coming together within the other souls, like you say, that are drawn to be here and watch this video and take part. It's yeah, that's the beauty of unity consciousness and where we're moving to, for sure. Yeah. Oh, I
The
love that.
interconnectedness of everything. And you
Yeah.
know what? You know what it makes me think of?
Yeah.
Those geodesic domes that we talked about, which is so funny because we were just talking about it again right before we got started. But again,
That's
yeah, like
right.
those little, they're sort of like node points and it's like a web of everything that's
Right.
interconnected. Yeah, it's like
Right.
one. And you know what? Then you think about it and you're like, well, wait a minute, isn't that like synapses in the brain? Isn't that like neurons, like things firing? Isn't that like a hologram of what's going on a bigger level?
Oh yeah, you got it. I was going to say the fractality of it all, the unity consciousness. We're all, like you say, we're all reflections of the whole. And oh my goodness, you just reminding me. I've seen some interesting analogies a few times in the last little while of um, like aerial views, like Google Maps views of cities, and comparing it to a circuit board, and like it's
Yeah.
exactly the same. And
Yeah.
it specifically, I saw something yesterday about Angkor Wat, that
Mm,
amazing Tartarian, I think, building in Cambodia. The architecture is just phenomenal. It's nothing that we have created, certainly in the 3D world. It comes from a higher source. But yeah, it's pretty wild when you start going down that hole of we're all fractals of the whole. And yeah, this similarity between geographic places and circuit boards. Yeah, we are most definitely in a matrix. And as we know, we are thankfully, just as we go through this ascension process, we're moving out of the artificial 4D created control matrix. We're moving back into the divine matrix, baby. And so much a part of that, I think, is the divine masculine and feminine balancing, like you've been talking about too. That's all part of it for sure, coming back to balance.
Yeah, well, and the matrix thing, right, is it's not that we're even transcending the matrix, it's that we are organically creating something new. It's like we are not bypassing the system, we are going directly into the system and using the system against itself to create something totally new, which, by the way, is a very Aquarian revolutionary,
Love it.
like give the finger to the to the
You got
man
it.
kind of energy. But again,
You
like, yeah,
just
when you literally think about the movie The Matrix, right?
I was just
Which,
gonna say we're all Neos. We're breaking it up from
yeah,
the inside, man.
you're all Neos. Like you learn that you change the system by going within the system. Yeah, exactly. And you learn that you have power to change the system, and it's about discovering what that power is. And I think that's
Yeah,
what we are all doing. But yeah, you're right.
exactly.
Going back to the feminine and masculine, the Hieros Gamos of it all. I was just going to say, with Pluto acting on Mars this year, it's really helping Mars to shift back into that frequency of protection of the divine feminine, because for so long it's been hijacked to be this opposite,
Yeah,
where the divine feminine is it's not valued, it's not cherished, it's not treated as sacred, and it's actually been possessed, manipulated, controlled, subjugated.
yeah,
It's been very, very badly treated. And there are some theories, and we don't have to go into all that, but there are some theories that um, the Matrix hijackers, or whatever you want to call it,
yeah,
hold misogynistic viewpoints, right? And a
absolutely.
misogynistic paradigm, which,
Yeah,
again, don't let that get you drawn into gender ideologies and feminism and that type of thing, because that's all 3D level hijack stuff. What it actually is, when we look at these energies, right, of feminine and masculine, feminine is the ability to just exist and to just receive and to be like that direct line of communication with source, to be source, right, and to hold that wisdom. And so if we are, subjugating and perverting and distorting and abusing the feminine, feminine can't be in her power. And I say her, but I'm also speaking to the inner masculine feminine, right? So
yeah,
this exists within all of us, but feminine can't be in her power. And so she can't have that connection to receive the inner wisdom that is needed. So thus we have like a society that's based on this paradigm where we are always seeking outside of ourselves, which is more of that masculine principle, and where we're
yeah,
always compelled into action and doing.
yeah,
And so many of us have been in this energy, right?
yeah,
It's like I have to do more, I have to act, it's not good enough to just be who I am, I have to change. And really what we are being called to remember now is to come back to the feminine. So I think we are now in a time where we are witnessing the rise of the divine feminine,
yeah,
and that is happening again within each of us individually. So we are having that shift, that return to Christ consciousness, which is unconditional love, and again that inner Hieros Gamos, the Sophia Christ union within.
yeah,
But it's also being reflected through relationships. And so we have to balance the masculine, where the masculine comes back into that protective mode of the feminine, standing in integrity and that sacred duty to protect the feminine. And then the feminine can go into her power, where she's able to receive and be and hold that sacred Magdalene flame of unconditional love, and
exactly.
becomes a source of healing, becomes a
Yeah.
source of healing.
Oh, I just love
So
that. That's so beautiful. yeah, you can feel the rise of, as you say, the divine feminine, but also the movement into the balance of the Christos and Magdalene consciousness coming into balance. It's so beautiful. And I always like the saying as well that the the sacred masculine doesn't protect the divine feminine because she's weak. He
Yeah.
protects her because she's incredibly powerful. So
Yes.
that's that beautiful balance that we're on the verge. Like I say, the pendulum has swung so far out of balance, but it's coming back. We're going to get back to that balance. And absolutely, the controllers have suppressed and held down the divine feminine because, as you say, the divine feminine is a direct channel for spiritual wisdom, and it's also the source of creation. I mean, yes, in balance and conjunction with sacred masculine, but the controllers can't create on their own. So much a part of
Right.
their game of divide and conquer has been to manipulate us into creating for them. And what they've created is, of course, such an imbalance between divine feminine and sacred masculine. But we're on to the game now. We know how to change it. We know how to
Yeah.
go within and balance it. Yeah.
It really is like the man behind the curtain, right? Like it's all smoke and mirrors, and it's just the illusion of control and the illusion of the way that the matrix is. And
Yeah.
so we are waking up to the illusion and remembering our power at this time. And
Yeah.
absolutely. And again, and I know it's hard to uh, remember this because it's so easy to like visualize it as outside of ourselves, but feminine and masculine, those are principles that exist within first, right? So I am speaking to men when I talk about the divine feminine, talking
Yeah.
about that inner wisdom and that inner marriage that brings that sense of wholeness and completion within the self. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, it can manifest externally through relationships and through partnerships. And so you also, I think we are going to be seeing more and more people coming together in union as they do this inner work as well, which is kind of leading into 2027, which will be a 2 universal year. And that is the fire goat. And I'm not an expert in Chinese astrology, but I was doing a little bit of research and I learned that goats are associated with relationships and like social life, doing what's best for the community, harmony, and working with others in cooperation. So there is definitely going to be this energy that we are preparing ourselves for now, right? So the fire horse is really about working on the self and coming into inner union. And that's
Yeah.
not to say, obviously many people are already in relationships. And if you're not, it doesn't mean that you can't be in a relationship in 2026. I'm not saying that, but I'm
Yeah.
saying that there is a focus on that inner union, which is going to support us as we start to carry it outside of ourselves in 2027 and
Yeah.
working directly with other people, romantically or not. We might be collaborating, kind of stepping into that Aquarian vibe where we're coming together in community with others. And
Yeah.
again, to do that and hold the highest integrity, you have to be aligned within yourself first. Like we were
That
saying, coherence within the self, right?
That's right. Oh, so beautifully said. Yeah. Yeah. Because again, yeah, the more we can do the healing and the balance within ourselves, the more we can, be in relationship to anybody in a more healthy and balanced way. And yeah, we all need to be able to go in and into that divine feminine energy within us, the yin energy, where it's the void of creation, and we go in and we create what we want to create. But if we want to share it with the world, we have to have our healed sacred masculine within us that will allow us to step out and externalize that in the outer world. And man, when we can do that within ourselves, and then create that within a relationship too, that's powerful. That is like, now I see all those connections going off as pairs and these beautiful flames
Yeah.
coming up. I think, yeah, spirit's given me some.
Yeah.
Ah, nice. I think, yeah, spirit just gave me that little image, and I love it. Yeah, it's there's no stopping the growth and the awareness and the truth and the emotional healing that started now in the awakened community, and it's going to keep spreading. More and more people are waking up all the time to the truth in the world. And like I say, it always starts with the truth in ourselves. The more we can see truth within ourselves and face truth within ourselves, and then we can see it better in the outer world. And it's happening for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many things I could keep talking with you about. And I think we definitely need to do this again, have another 5DT. What do you think? Would you like to
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
right.
You don't even have to
Yeah.
ask. Like I'm already there. I'm already there in the future having the conversation with you.
Right in. Right
Yeah.
on. And if it happens after February 17th, we're gonna ride in on our fire horses and tie them up and then sit down and have a talk.
I'm gonna ride in
Yeah.
with a lasso and
Exactly. You got it. You got it. It's
yeah,
I love how you're saying too, like collaboration is starting to ignite within this awakened community, and it's so beautiful to see. And I have a feeling our 5DT might expand and include more people too, which will be fun. Yeah.
I would love
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Turn
Yeah.
into more of a round table.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, there's a another divine feminine roundtable that's going to be sparked out of this, I think. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Christina, for sharing your
Thank you.
amazing old soul wisdom of astrology, evolutionary astrology, and your spiritual wisdom that marries in so nicely. You're a good example of the Hieros Gamos, the way you can bring in this intellectual wisdom and tie it in with spiritual wisdom. It's just absolutely beautiful. And I
Oh,
am
thank
going to put, yeah, no, you're ahead of your time, baby, for sure.
you.
And I'm going to put all the details for how you can contact Christina below this video. And please, if you've enjoyed even one little nugget from this video, Christina and I would both really appreciate it if you could give us a like and subscribe to Jacqueline Middleton Coaching and subscribe to Zenith Glow Astrology and just help us to keep this momentum going and get these little bits of shared wisdom out there because it's always a reflection of the wisdom you already have within you. It's just about starting the conversations and getting them going, I think, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And likewise, I'm going to be sharing this on my channel as well. So if you're watching from my channel, I'll be posting Jacqueline's information below in the description box where you can find her. And by all means, please go support her work because she's doing really important work in the world right now as well. And we need more of her energy and more of her wisdom. So yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
so
Thank you.
grateful.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful. Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Jacqueline. It
Love it.
was honored.
Absolutely. Have a fantastic day, everybody. And we'll see you again for some 5DT. Take care.
Bye.